The stars looked different from here. Commander Jake Sullivan stood at the observation window of the UES Valiant and watched the alien moon grow larger on the screen. Centaur 7 was nothing like Earth's moon. This one had rings of ice that caught the light from 3 nearby suns. Beautiful, he thought. Deadly beautiful. Behind him, Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez checked the ship's systems for the 10th time that hour. She was nervous. They all were. This was humanity's first meeting with the Galactic Council. 12 alien species who had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. Species who had faster ships, better weapons, and technologies that seemed like magic to human eyes. Jake turned away from the window. His uniform was crisp and clean. Earth had sent its best. Him, Amy, Dr. Ben Harrison, the engineer, and Lisa Carter, the diplomat. 4 humans to represent their entire species. The weight of it pressed on his shoulders like a physical thing. Ben walked onto the bridge carrying a datapad. His face was serious. That was normal for Ben. The man rarely smiled, but today his jaw was tight with worry. "We are receiving a docking code," Amy said. "They are ready for us," Jake nodded. "Take us in, nice and slow. No sudden moves." The Valiant moved toward the massive station orbiting Centaur 7. The station was huge. It made their ship look like a toy. Towers of metal and crystal rose from a central sphere. Ships from a dozen different worlds sat in docking bays. Some looked like living creatures. Others were geometric shapes that hurt to look at for too long. Lisa joined them on the bridge. She wore formal diplomatic robes over her uniform. Her hands were steady, but her eyes showed fear. She had spent 2 years studying what little humanity knew about the Council. She knew the rules, the customs, the ways to show respect. But books could only teach so much. "Remember," she said quietly. "Let me do the talking at first. These species value protocol. One wrong word could end this badly." Jake understood. He had fought in 2 wars. He knew when to lead and when to follow. This was Lisa's battlefield, not his. The ship docked with a soft thud. Artificial gravity pulled at them as they entered the station's field. Jake felt his stomach drop slightly. The gravity here was heavier than Earth normal. Another reminder that they were far from home. The airlock door opened. Beyond it stood 2 guards. They were not human. Not even close. Each stood 8 feet tall with 4 arms and skin that looked like polished stone. Their eyes glowed a soft blue. They carried weapons that hummed with power. "The Galactic Council awaits," one guard said. Its voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "Follow." They walked through corridors that seemed to shift and change. The walls were alive with light. Symbols flowed across surfaces in languages Jake could not read. Other aliens passed them in the halls. Some stopped to stare. Others ignored them completely. Jake felt like an insect under a microscope. The council chamber was enormous. The ceiling rose so high it disappeared into shadow. 12 massive seats formed a half circle around a central platform. In those seats sat beings from 12 different worlds. Jake recognized some from the briefing files. The Zephrani looked like giant insects with too many legs and compound eyes that saw in spectrums humans could not imagine. The Thorians were reptilian and covered in scales that shifted colors. The Verithians looked almost human from a distance, but up close their skin was too perfect, their movements too fluid. In the center seat sat chairwoman Krila of the Zephrani. She was old. Jake could tell that much. Her shell was scarred and cracked in places. Her mandibles clicked as she regarded the human delegation. "Humans," she said. Her voice came from a translator device. It sounded cold and mechanical. "You stand before the Galactic Council. Speak your purpose." Lisa stepped forward. She bowed in the manner she had practiced 1,000 times. "Honored Council, we come seeking friendship. Humanity wishes to join the community of civilized species. We offer our knowledge and our labor in exchange for guidance and partnership." Murmurs ran through the council. Some sounded amused. Others sounded dismissive. Jake's jaw tightened, but he kept his face neutral. A figure rose from one of the seats. He was Verithian, 7 feet tall with silver skin and eyes like liquid gold. His presence filled the room like smoke. This was Ambassador Drelkoth. The file said he was a warrior who had won glory in 100 battles. "Partnership," Drelkoth said. The word dripped with contempt. "Your species has been in space for less than 200 of your years. You have visited how many star systems? 10? 20? We have explored 10,000 systems while your ancestors still lived in caves." Lisa's face remained calm. We are young, yes. But we learn quickly. We have much to offer. Drelkoth laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. What could you possibly offer us? Your ships are slow. Your weapons are crude. Your understanding of physics is elementary at best. He walked down from his seat and approached the platform. His movements were predatory, graceful and dangerous. Jake felt his muscles tense. Every instinct told him this being was a threat. The Council has discussed your petition, Drelkoth continued. We have decided to offer you protectorate status. You will remain in your current systems. You will accept our oversight. You will provide tribute in resources and labor. In return, we will protect you from threats you cannot handle yourselves. The words hung in the air like a knife. Protectorate status. Fancy words for slavery. Jake had read enough history to know what that meant. Humanity would become a servant species, forever under the thumb of powers who saw them as primitive children. Lisa kept her voice steady. We appreciate the Council's consideration. However, humanity seeks membership, not protection. We wish to stand as equals, Drelkoth said. He was close now. Close enough that Jake could smell something like cinnamon and copper. You are not our equals. You are infants playing with fire. Accept our generous offer or return to your little corner of space and wait another 1,000 years. Jake felt something crack inside him. He had fought too hard and seen too many friends die to let humanity be dismissed like this. He had orders to be diplomatic, to accept whatever terms were offered. But standing here in this chamber with this alien looking down at them like they were insects, those orders seemed very far away. He stepped forward. Lisa shot him a warning look, but he ignored it. With respect, Ambassador, Jake said. Humanity did not travel across the galaxy to become anyone's servants. We have faced extinction more times than I can count. Ice ages, plagues, wars that nearly destroyed our entire species. We survived all of it. We are still here. Still fighting. Still growing. If the Council cannot see our value as partners, then perhaps the Council is not as wise as we were told. The chamber fell silent. It was the kind of silence that comes before an explosion. Jake could feel Lisa's horror radiating from her. Ben had gone pale. Amy looked ready to bolt for the ship. Drelkoth's eyes narrowed. His hand moved to something at his belt. For a moment, Jake thought he would draw a weapon. Instead, the Verithian smiled. It was a terrible smile. You dare question my judgment, Drelkoth said softly. You dare suggest that I, who have served the Council for 3 centuries, do not understand the worth of your species. I am suggesting, Jake said, that perhaps you should not judge us based on our age or our technology. Judge us by our actions, by our determination, by our refusal to surrender. Drelkoth took another step forward. They were almost nose to nose now. The height difference was significant, but Jake did not back down. Very well, human. The Verithian's voice was like ice. I invoke the right of challenge. You have questioned my judgment before the Council. By our ancient laws, this dispute must be settled through combat. Do you accept or do you admit that your words were empty boasting? Jake felt his heart hammer in his chest. He knew what this was, a trap. A way to humiliate humanity. But backing down now would be worse than losing a fight. It would show the entire galaxy that humans were cowards who talked big but ran when challenged. He looked at Lisa. She was shaking her head slightly. No, do not do this. Ben's expression said the same thing. Only Amy met his eyes with something like understanding. She had served under him in the Mars Rebellion. She knew he would not back down, not now, not ever. Jake turned back to Drelkoth. I accept your challenge. The Council chamber erupted in noise. Some voices sounded shocked. Others sounded excited. Chairwoman Kreela raised one clawed limb for silence. The challenge is accepted, she announced. The combat will take place tomorrow at the arena of Zentar. May the worthy prevail. As they left the chamber, Lisa grabbed Jake's arm. What have you done, she hissed. Do you have any idea what you have just agreed to? Drelkoth is a champion. He has killed 12 opponents in ritual combat. You're going to die tomorrow. Jake looked at her steadily. Maybe. But if I die, at least the galaxy will know that humans do not bow. They will know we fight. And that is worth more than any treaty they could offer us on their terms. They walked back to the ship in silence. Tomorrow would bring either humanity's greatest triumph or its most public defeat. Either way, the galaxy would never forget what happened next. The night was long. Jake sat in the Valiant's briefing room watching videos of Drelkoth's previous fights. There were 47 of them. The Verithian had never lost, never even been injured. He moved like water and struck like lightning. His opponents died quickly or submitted in shame. Ben sat across from him, analyzing the footage frame by frame. The engineer's face was grim. "Look at this," he said, freezing the image. "The Verithian's skin is not just for show. See how the blade glances off his shoulder? That is some kind of natural armor. Maybe biological, maybe enhanced. Either way, conventional weapons barely scratch him." Jake nodded. He had noticed the same thing. Drelkoth's previous opponents had used energy weapons, blades, even what looked like acid. Nothing worked. The Verithian just kept coming until his enemies fell. "What about his weaknesses?" Jake asked. "Everyone has weaknesses." Ben shook his head. "If he has any, these videos do not show them." His joints seem flexible. His eyes track movement faster than should be possible. His strength is at least 3 times human normal. Maybe more. The door opened. Amy walked in carrying a data pad and 3 cups of coffee. She looked tired. Her uniform was rumpled. She had been working all night gathering information from the station's public networks. "I found something interesting," she said, setting the coffee down. "The rules for challenges. They allow any non-lethal weapons and armor the fighters can carry themselves. There is no time limit. Victory comes through submission, unconsciousness, or death." Jake sipped the coffee. It was bitter and strong. "So it is a war of attrition, potentially." "Yes," Amy said. "But here is the important part. I spoke to a Zephrani technician who has seen many challenges. She said Verithians are built for overwhelming power. Their world has high gravity, thick atmosphere. They are incredibly strong, but they tire faster than most species in standard oxygen environments." Jake leaned forward. How much faster, she was not sure, but she said most Verithian fights end in under 10 minutes. Not because they want quick victories, because they need them. Ben pulled up biological data on his screen. That makes sense. High-gravity worlds produce strong species, but their cardiovascular systems are not built for extended activity in lower gravity. They burn through energy reserves quickly. Jake felt something click in his mind. A plan forming. "So if the fight goes longer than 10 minutes, then you might have a chance," Ben finished. "But that means surviving 10 minutes against something that can break you like a toy." The 3 of them sat in silence for a moment. The odds were still terrible, but terrible odds were better than no chance at all. Lisa entered the room. She looked like she had not slept. Her eyes were red. "I have been thinking," she said quietly. "You could still withdraw. Claim illness, diplomatic emergency, something. The council would accept it. You would look weak, but we could rebuild from there." Jake shook his head. "No. Every species in the galaxy will be watching this. If I run now, humanity will never be taken seriously. We will always be the cowards who talked tough and ran away." "Better a live coward than a dead hero," Lisa said. "Not always," Jake replied. "Sometimes you have to stand and fight even when you cannot win, because it is the standing that matters." They spent the rest of the night preparing. Ben assembled light tactical armor that would give protection without slowing Jake down. Amy drilled him on movement patterns and escape techniques. Lisa researched council law to ensure they understood every rule and loophole. As dawn broke over Zentar 7, Jake stood in the ship's small gym. He had been training since he was 15, boxing, wrestling, military combat. He was good, maybe the best human fighter alive, but that meant nothing here. He was facing something from another world with abilities humans did not possess. Amy found him there an hour before the challenge. "You ready?" she asked. "No," Jake said honestly, "but I am going anyway." She smiled slightly. "That is the most human thing I have ever heard." The arena of Zentar was carved into the moon's surface. It was ancient, older than human civilization by thousands of years. Stone seats rose in tiers around a central fighting ground. The seats were filling rapidly. Aliens from dozens of species came to watch, some out of curiosity, most expecting to see a human die. Betting markets had opened across the station. The odds were heavily against Jake, 50-1, 100-1 on some boards. No one gave humanity a chance. Jake walked through the tunnel that led to the arena floor. His armor was light, flexible plates over vital areas, nothing that would slow him down. He carried no weapons. Against Drelkoth's natural advantages, weapons seemed pointless anyway. The arena floor was smooth stone, 50 meters across. No cover, no obstacles, just open space under 3 suns that beat down with harsh light. Drelkoth was already there. He stood in the center of the arena wearing ceremonial battle armor that gleamed silver in the sunlight. In his hands he held a plasma lance. The weapon hummed with barely contained energy. It could cut through steel like paper. The size difference was staggering. Drelkoth towered over Jake by more than a foot. His shoulders were twice as wide. His arms looked like they could crush stone. The crowd roared their approval. This was going to be a slaughter. Chairwoman Kreela's voice echoed across the arena. Combatants, you fight under ancient law. There will be no interference, no mercy. Victory through submission, unconsciousness, or death. Do you both understand and accept these terms? I accept, Drelkoth said. His voice was calm, confident. He had done this before and won every time. I accept, Jake said. His voice was steady despite the fear running through his veins. Kreela paused. Human, she said. This is your final chance to withdraw. Drelkoth is a champion. You will die here. Jake looked up at her. Then I will die standing, the crowd murmured. Some aliens seemed impressed by the human's courage. Most just thought he was stupid. Very well, Kreela said. Let the challenge begin. A horn sounded, deep and resonant. The sound of it vibrated in Jake's chest. Drelkoth moved instantly. He was fast, faster than something that size had any right to be. He closed the distance in 3 massive strides and brought the plasma lance down in a killing blow. Jake threw himself to the side. The lance hit where he had been standing. Stone melted under its touch. Heat washed over him, close, too close. Drelkoth spun faster than Jake expected. The lance came again. A horizontal slash meant to cut him in half. Jake ducked. The weapon passed over his head with inches to spare. The crowd was on its feet now. This was not the quick execution they expected. The human was still alive. Still moving, Drelkoth attacked again and again. Each strike was powerful enough to kill instantly. Each one came with blinding speed. Jake dodged, rolled, ducked, never trying to block, never standing still. Just staying alive 1 second at a time. 5 minutes passed, then 6. The Verithians' attacks were still devastating, but Jake noticed something. The recovery time between strikes was getting longer, just by fractions of a second. But it was there, 8 minutes. Drelkoth's breathing was heavier now. His silver skin had darkened slightly. Sweat or something like it ran down his face. 10 minutes. Jake was breathing hard too, but he was not exhausted. His heart rate was elevated but controlled. Humans evolved to run, to chase prey across vast distances, to never stop. This was what his species was built for. Drelkoth swung the plasma lance in a wide arc. Jake ducked under it and for the first time went on the attack. A quick jab to the Verithian's ribs. It was like hitting a wall, but Drelkoth grunted. Surprise more than pain. The crowd's noise changed. Shock rippled through the stands. The human had struck back. Actually landed a blow. 15 minutes. Drelkoth was slowing. His attacks were still dangerous but more predictable. Jake dodged a thrust and kicked at the Verithian's knee. The joint bent slightly. Not enough to cause real damage, but enough to show vulnerability. 20 minutes. The Verithian was gasping now. His movements were sluggish. The plasma lance dipped as his strength faded. Jake circled him like a predator. Patient, waiting. 25 minutes. Drelkoth dropped to one knee. The lance fell from his hands. He looked up at Jake with something like disbelief in his golden eyes. The arena was silent. Thousands of aliens sat frozen, unable to process what they were seeing. Jake stood ready. He was tired, but he could keep going. Hours if needed. That was the gift evolution gave his species. Not strength, not speed, but the ability to never stop. Drelkoth raised his hand slowly. The gesture was universal. Submission. I yield, the Verithian said. His voice was hoarse. I yield to the human. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the arena exploded with sound. Some aliens cheered. Others sat in shocked silence. Betting terminals across the station crashed as impossible results came in. Jake walked over to Drelkoth. He offered his hand. The Verithian looked at it for a long moment. Then he took it. Jake helped him to his feet. You fought with honor, Jake said. You are a great warrior. Drelkoth met his eyes. As are you, human. As are you. As they left the arena together, Jake looked up at his crew in the stands. Amy was crying and laughing at the same time. Ben looked like he might faint. Lisa just stared with her mouth open. The galaxy had learned its first lesson about humanity. They were not the strongest. They were not the fastest. But they never stopped coming, and that made them more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The news traveled faster than light. Within hours, every inhabited world in the galaxy knew what happened. A human, a species barely out of their own solar system, had defeated a Verithian champion. The impossible had occurred. Jake woke up the next morning to find himself famous. His face was on news feeds across 1,000 worlds. Analysts were reviewing the fight frame by frame. Military experts were writing papers about human combat doctrine. Everyone wanted to understand how it happened. The Galactic Council reconvened the day after the challenge. The chamber felt different now. The dismissive attitudes were gone. When Jake entered with his delegation, several council members stood. A gesture of respect. Chairwoman Kreela's mandibles clicked in what might have been approval. "Commander Sullivan," she said, "your victory was most unexpected. You have demonstrated that humanity possesses qualities we did not anticipate. The council has reconsidered your petition." Jake stood at attention. He was sore from the fight, but he did not let it show. "We are grateful for the council's reconsideration. We offer humanity associate membership," Kreela continued. "You will have representation in council proceedings, access to common trade routes, protection under council law. In return, you will abide by council regulations and contribute to mutual defense." It was a far better offer than the protectorate status they had been offered before. Jake looked at Lisa. She nodded slightly. They had discussed this outcome. "It was acceptable. Humanity accepts," Jake said. "We look forward to working with the council." But not everyone in the chamber was pleased. Ambassador Velkar of the Thorian Dominion rose from his seat. He was reptilian with scales that shifted from green to red when he was agitated. Right now they were very red. "I must voice my concern," Velkar said. His voice hissed like steam. "Humanity has demonstrated combat prowess, yes, but one victory does not prove they are ready for council membership. We know nothing of their true intentions, their technology, their military capabilities." Several other council members murmured agreement. The Thorian Dominion controlled 50 systems. Their opinion carried weight. "What do you propose, Ambassador?" Kreela asked. "I propose a period of observation," Velkar replied. "Allow inspection teams to visit human worlds. Let us understand what we are truly accepting into our ranks, for the safety of all council species." Jake felt his jaw tighten. This was the same game in different words. They wanted access to Earth's defenses, to human military installations, to see where humanity was weakest. "Humanity has nothing to hide," Lisa said carefully. "But we would expect the same transparency from council members. Perhaps a mutual exchange of information." "That is hardly equivalent," Velkar said. "Council members have earned trust over millennia. You have earned one victory." The debate continued for hours. Some species supported the Thorians. Others argued for giving humanity a chance. Drelkoth, surprisingly, spoke in favor of accepting humans without additional conditions. His voice carried weight as the warrior who had faced Jake personally. In the end, Chairwoman Kreela called for further study. The council would investigate the matter and vote again in 3 months. It was not the clear acceptance Jake had hoped for, but it was not rejection either. As they left the chamber, Ben pulled Jake aside. "We have a problem," he said quietly. "I have been monitoring communications. The Thorians are conducting military exercises near our space, 40 warships. They claim it is routine, but the timing is suspicious." Jake felt cold dread settle in his stomach. "They are testing us, or preparing for something worse," Ben agreed. That evening, Jake sent an encrypted message back to Earth. Admiral Patricia Hughes needed to know what they were facing. The council was divided. The Thorians were positioning for possible conflict. Humanity needed to prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. The next weeks were intense. Jake and his crew worked to build alliances. They met quietly with sympathetic council members. Lisa used every diplomatic skill she possessed to build goodwill. Amy established communication channels with moderate factions. Ben shared carefully selected human technology to demonstrate humanity's value. Some species responded well. The Zephrani were curious about human persistence hunting techniques. Their own world had few large predators. The concept of chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion fascinated them. The Kelshani, a peaceful species of aquatic beings, appreciated human music and art. They invited human performers to their worlds, but others remained suspicious. The Thorians continued their aggressive posture. Their ships conducted what they called routine patrols, but everyone knew were shows of force. They stopped and searched human merchant vessels, always within the letter of council law but clearly intended to provoke. 2 months after the arena challenge, the situation escalated. A human science outpost in the Kepler system reported being shadowed by Thorian scouts. The scouts took detailed scans of the outpost's defenses. When the outpost commander requested they leave, the Thorians ignored him. Jake brought the incident to the council. Ambassador Velkar claimed it was a misunderstanding. His ships were conducting legitimate intelligence gathering allowed under council protocols. The fact that they were gathering intelligence on human facilities was entirely proper, given humanity's probationary status. The council did nothing. They were deadlocked. Half wanted to restrain the Thorians. Half agreed that scrutiny of the newcomers was appropriate. On Earth, Admiral Hughes was not sitting idle. She had spent the months since Jake's victory preparing. New warships were being built in orbital yards. Captain Danny Foster was overseeing construction of vessels that combined human engineering with alien concepts they had observed. Nothing that violated council technology restrictions, but everything they could legally build. Nicole Brooks, one of Earth's top engineers, was working on defensive systems. She studied the Thorian ships from long-range scans. She noticed something interesting. Thorian shields were optimized for energy weapons. They could absorb incredible amounts of directed energy, but kinetic weapons, solid projectiles with mass, were less effectively blocked. It was a small advantage, perhaps meaningless, but Nicole filed it away. In war, small advantages sometimes made the difference between victory and defeat. 3 months after the arena challenge, the council reconvened for the promised vote. The chamber was packed. Species from across the galaxy wanted to see what would happen. Would humanity be accepted or rejected? Before the vote could begin, Ambassador Velkar requested permission to present new evidence. He projected images on the chamber's central display. They showed human military installations, ships under construction, weapons testing. As you can see, Velkar said, humanity is engaged in massive military expansion. They are building warships at an alarming rate, developing weapons that may violate council restrictions. I submit that this is not the behavior of a peaceful species seeking membership. This is the behavior of a threat preparing for conquest. Jake felt anger boil in his chest. The images were real but taken out of context. Yes, humanity was building ships, because Thorian vessels were conducting aggressive patrols near their space. It was self-defense, not preparation for war. He stood. With respect, Ambassador Velkar, humanity is exercising its right to self-defense. Your own ships have been conducting military exercises on our borders for months. We are simply ensuring we can protect our people. Self-defense, Velkar hissed. Or preparation for aggression? How are we to know the difference? I call for inspection teams to be sent to human space immediately. If they refuse, it proves they have something to hide. Several council members voiced support. Others objected. The chamber descended into argument. Voices were raised in a dozen languages. Translators struggled to keep up. Chairwoman Kreela called for order. The vote was postponed pending further investigation. Teams would be assembled to gather more information. A decision would be made within 30 days. As they left the chamber, Lisa looked worried. This is bad, she said. They are building a case against us. Velkar is not just trying to deny us membership. He is trying to paint us as a threat. Why? Amy asked. What does he gain? Ben answered. Political power. If he convinces the council that humanity is dangerous, he positions himself as the one who saw the threat first. The protector of galactic security. It gives the Thorians leverage over dozens of other species. Or, Jake said quietly, he is preparing justification for an attack. Build the narrative that we are a threat. Get council approval or at least council neutrality. Then strike before we grow stronger. They looked at each other. None of them wanted to believe it could come to war. But the evidence was mounting. The Thorians were not just suspicious. They were hostile. That night, Jake sent another message to Admiral Hughes. This one was more urgent. The situation was deteriorating. War might be inevitable. Earth needed to prepare not just defensively, but for the real possibility of invasion. Hughes's reply came within hours. Understood. We are accelerating all defense programs. If the Thorians want to fight, we will give them one they never forget. But Jake, try to buy us as much time as possible. Every week matters. Jake sat in the observation room of the Valiant looking at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth. Home. Billions of humans living their lives unaware of how close they were to disaster. He had come to the council seeking peace and partnership. The war came 6 months after Jake stood in the arena. The Thorian High Command decided that humanity had grown too dangerous to tolerate. Ambassador Velkar returned to Thorian space and convinced his government that action was necessary now, before humans became even stronger. 200 warships assembled in Thorian territory. It was the largest military fleet seen in decades. Grand Admiral Thexnor commanded from the battleship Dominator, a vessel 3 kilometers long that could reduce a planet to ash. The admiral was old and experienced. He had conquered 17 worlds in his career. Adding Earth to that list seemed trivial. The Zephrani, sympathetic to humanity, sent warning through secret channels. Jake immediately transmitted everything to Earth. The intelligence included fleet composition, battle plans, and expected routes. It was priceless information. It might also not be enough. Jake was recalled to Earth within hours. He left Amy, Lisa, and Ben at the council to continue diplomatic efforts. Someone had to try to prevent this war even as it seemed inevitable. Jake took a fast courier ship that made the journey in 3 days. It felt like 3 years. Earth Defense Command was a storm of activity when he arrived. Admiral Hughes met him in the war room deep beneath Geneva. Screens covered every wall showing ship positions, resource allocations, and tactical projections. None of the projections looked good. "We have 40 operational warships," Hughes said without preamble. "Another 15 under construction. But they will not be ready in time. The Thorians are bringing 200. We are outnumbered 5-1 against a military power that has been conquering worlds since before we invented writing." Jake studied the displays. "What are our advantages?" Hughes smiled grimly. "We are defending home territory. We know every rock in this system. We have supply lines measured in light minutes instead of light years. And we have you, me. You proved in the arena that humans can win by thinking differently. I am giving you field command. The fleet is yours. Use it however you see fit." Jake felt the weight of that responsibility. 40 ships, tens of thousands of crew, the fate of Earth, all resting on his decisions. But he did not hesitate. "Yes, ma'am." He spent 2 weeks studying everything humanity knew about Thorian military doctrine. Captain Danny Foster, now commanding the new destroyer Defiant, helped analyze their tactics. The Thorians fought with overwhelming force. They expected enemies to meet them in direct combat. Fleet against fleet, the stronger side won. It had worked for them for centuries. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Mitchell headed tactical operations. He had fought in the Titan border wars. He understood asymmetric warfare. "We cannot beat them ship to ship," he said. "So we do not fight ship to ship. We use the system against them." Jake nodded. The plan took shape over long nights and endless coffee. Humanity would not meet the Thorians in open battle. Instead, they would turn the solar system itself into a weapon. The asteroid belt, the gas giants, the electromagnetic chaos of the sun, all of it would become part of the battlefield. Ben worked on weapons designed specifically for this strategy. Nuclear missiles with stealth coatings that enemy sensors could barely detect. Kinetic kill vehicles, simple chunks of metal accelerated to massive speeds. Autonomous drone swarms that could overwhelm point defense systems through sheer numbers. Nicole Brooks developed the most ambitious part of the plan. Hidden railgun platforms scattered throughout the inner solar system, each one capable of launching projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. They would remain dormant until the crucial moment, appearing as nothing more than debris or inactive satellites. 3 weeks after Jake returned to Earth, the Thorian fleet entered human space. They came from the direction of Alpha Centauri, exactly as the Zephrani intelligence predicted. 200 warships in perfect formation, a show of overwhelming power. Grand Admiral Thexnor broadcast his ultimatum. Humanity must surrender unconditionally within 24 hours. All military vessels would be scrapped. Earth would accept Thorian occupation. Resistance would be met with total annihilation. Jake's response was transmitted from the bridge of the carrier Resilience, humanity's flagship. His message was simple. No, the battle began at Neptune. 4 human destroyers led by Danny Foster waited in the planet's shadow. When the Thorian vanguard passed, they struck. Torpedo spreads launched at point-blank range. 3 Thorian ships were damaged before they could react. The destroyers used Neptune's magnetic field to mask their retreat. The Thorians pursued into what they thought was open space. They ran into minefields humanity had been laying for weeks, autonomous mines that drifted silent until a target came close. Then they accelerated and detonated. 9 more Thorian vessels were destroyed or crippled. Thexnor was enraged but not deterred. He had anticipated some resistance. Losing 12 ships from a fleet of 200 was acceptable. He ordered his forces to sweep the outer system in multiple groups. They would clear out the human raiders and then proceed to Earth. This was exactly what Jake wanted. The Thorian fleet split into smaller squadrons to cover more area. Now, instead of facing one overwhelming force, humanity faced many smaller ones. The asteroid belt became a hunting ground. Human ships hid among the rocks. They knew every hiding place, every clear lane, every place where sensors were confused by metal ore. Thorian squadrons entered the belt and found themselves ambushed from multiple directions. A Thorian cruiser would pursue a destroyer only to find 2 more waiting in ambush. Fighter squadrons led by Amy's trained pilots conducted hit-and-run attacks. They would strike, damage, and retreat before the enemy could respond effectively. The Thorians had superior ships and weapons, but humans had better knowledge of the terrain and better tactics. Every engagement was planned. Every ambush was coordinated. The exchange rate favored humanity. For every human ship lost, 2 or 3 Thorian vessels were destroyed. 2 weeks into the battle, Thexnor had lost 70 ships. 70 out of 200. The number shocked him. He had never faced such losses. His officers urged caution. Perhaps they should withdraw and reconsider their approach. But Thexnor's pride would not allow retreat. He had promised his government a quick victory. He had boasted that humans would be crushed in days. To return now in defeat would mean disgrace, possibly execution. He made his decision. The entire fleet would advance together to Earth. No more splitting into small groups. They would overwhelm the human defenses through sheer numbers. Even reduced to 130 ships, they still outnumbered the humans 3 to 1. Jake watched the Thorian fleet reform on long-range sensors. "This is it," he said to his staff. "They are committing everything. If we can break them here, we win. If we fail, Earth falls." The final phase of the plan began. Every human ship in the system received their orders. They were to conduct running battles as they retreated toward Earth. Keep the Thorians focused and angry. Draw them deeper into the trap. For 3 days, the Thorian fleet advanced. Human ships harassed them constantly, never committing to a real fight. Always retreating, always keeping just out of reach. It was frustrating for the Thorians, infuriating, exactly as Jake intended. By the time they reached Mars orbit, the Thorians were furious and eager for a decisive battle. They could see Earth ahead. Victory seemed within reach. Just one more push and the humans would be crushed. Thexnor gave the order. All ships advance. Full speed. Destroy any resistance. Prepare to bombard Earth. The Thorian fleet surged forward. 130 warships moving in formation. It was a terrifying sight. The most powerful military force to enter human space in history. Jake sat in the command center beneath Geneva. Around him, staff officers monitored every aspect of the battle. He watched the Thorian fleet reach the optimal position. Right where they needed to be, he gave the order. Activate the platforms. Spring the trap. Throughout the inner solar system, 30 hidden railgun platforms powered up. They had been disguised as debris, as inactive satellites, as anything except what they really were. Nicole's team had spent months building and positioning them, creating overlapping fields of fire that covered every approach to Earth. The railguns fired. Solid projectiles accelerated to tremendous speeds. Thorian shields were designed to stop energy weapons, lasers, plasma, directed energy of all kinds. Against solid mass moving at relativistic speeds, those shields were almost useless. 30 Thorian ships were destroyed in the opening salvo. They simply ceased to exist as kinetic projectiles tore through them. The remaining ships scattered in chaos. Their formation broke as captains tried desperately to evade the invisible threat. In that moment of chaos, the human fleet attacked. 40 ships that had been conducting delaying actions throughout the system converged from multiple directions. The Thorians found themselves surrounded, caught in a killing zone with enemies on all sides and railgun platforms firing from fixed positions. The battle that followed was brutal. Thorian ships were still dangerous. They fought back with everything they had, but they were disorganized, confused, unable to coordinate their superior firepower. Human ships worked in coordinated groups. 3 destroyers would focus fire on a single cruiser. Fighters would swarm larger vessels. The railgun platforms continued firing, each shot claiming another victim. On the Dominator, Grand Admiral Thexnor finally understood what had. News of the Thorian defeat spread across the galaxy faster than the fleeing warships. Within days, every inhabited world knew what happened. Humanity, a species barely a century into space exploration, had defeated one of the oldest military powers in the galaxy. The analysis began immediately. Military academies on 100 worlds studied the battle. How had humans overcome such overwhelming odds? The answer was uncomfortable for many species. Humans had won through creativity and adaptability. They refused to fight the way their enemy expected. They turned their disadvantages into advantages. They never stopped adapting. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Chairwoman Kreela looked older than Jake remembered. The stress of the past months had taken its toll on everyone. The chamber was full. Every species wanted to witness this moment. Jake stood once again before the council. But this time was different. No one dismissed him. No one questioned humanity's worth. They had proven themselves in the only way the galaxy truly understood. Through strength, Commander Sullivan, Kreela began. The council has witnessed humanity's capabilities. Your species has demonstrated not only martial prowess but strategic brilliance. We offer humanity full membership in the Galactic Council with all rights and privileges. The vote was called. It passed with only 2 abstentions. The Thorian delegation did not attend. Ambassador Velkar had been recalled in disgrace. His government was in crisis. Member species of the Dominion were questioning the leadership that led them into such catastrophic defeat. Humanity accepts, Jake said. We look forward to working with all council species to maintain peace and prosperity. There was one more surprise. Drelkoth rose from his seat. The Verithian warrior looked directly at Jake. Commander Sullivan, on behalf of Emperor Craxton and the Verithian Empire, I wish to propose a formal alliance between our peoples. We recognize in humans the warrior spirit we value above all else. Together we could be a force for stability in the galaxy. Jake was surprised but pleased. An alliance with the Verithians would give humanity a powerful friend. It would also show other species that humans could be trusted partners. Humanity would be honored to ally with the Verithian Empire. The treaty was signed 2 weeks later. Earth and the Verithian homeworld became formal allies. It created a new power block within council politics. Other species took notice. Some sought to build relationships with the human-Verithian alliance. Others kept their distance, wary of humanity's rapid rise. Jake was promoted to ambassador and made Earth's permanent representative to the council. It was what he had come here to achieve all those months ago. But so much had changed. He had changed. The weight of leadership and the cost of victory had marked him. His crew received their own honors. Amy was promoted to commander and given command of humanity's fighter corps. She would train the next generation of pilots in the tactics that had proven so effective against the Thorians. Her methods would eventually be adopted by a dozen other species. Ben became head of a joint research program sharing technology between Earth and allied species. His work on the railgun platforms had proven that human engineering could match or exceed alien capabilities. Other species wanted to learn from human innovation. Lisa continued as Jake's chief diplomatic advisor. She had been right to fear that first challenge with Drelkoth. It had changed everything, but she had to admit it had worked out better than any careful diplomacy might have achieved. Sometimes the bold path was the right one. 6 months after the battle, humanity held a memorial ceremony. A monument was built in lunar orbit honoring those who fell defending Earth. Representatives from 40 council species attended. Even former enemies came to pay their respects. Admiral Hughes spoke at the ceremony. Her voice was strong, but Jake could see tears in her eyes. These men and women gave their lives so humanity could remain free. They faced impossible odds and prevailed through courage and determination. We will never forget them. The galaxy will never forget them. The memorial's inscription was written by a committee of human and alien scholars. It tried to capture what made humanity unique, what set them apart from other species. The final text was simple but powerful. Here lie those who defended not just their world, but the principle that respect must be earned, not demanded. They faced impossible odds and prevailed through courage, creativity, and the indomitable human spirit. Let all who challenged humanity remember we are the species that conquered our own world before reaching for the stars. In the years that followed, humanity's reputation grew. They became known for several distinctive traits. Human diplomats were sought after for their creativity in resolving conflicts. They approached problems from unexpected angles. They found solutions no one else considered. Human engineers revolutionized multiple fields. The railgun technology was adapted for peaceful uses. Human medical advances saved millions of lives across the galaxy. Human artists and musicians brought new forms of expression to worlds that had forgotten how to create. But it was human military advisors who were most in demand. Dozens of species wanted to learn the tactics that defeated the Thorians. They wanted to understand how a weaker force could overcome a stronger one through intelligence and adaptation. The galaxy learned what Drelkoth discovered in the arena and what Grand Admiral Thexnor learned in the solar system. Humans were not the strongest species, not the fastest, not the most technologically advanced, but they were the most adaptable. They turned disadvantages into advantages. They never stopped learning. They never quit. Jake often thought about that first day in the council chamber, when he had stood before species who viewed humans as primitive and irrelevant. When Drelkoth had issued his challenge and Jake had accepted despite knowing the odds, that single decision had set everything in motion. If he had backed down, humanity would have been relegated to second-class status, forever seen as weak, forever controlled by others. But by standing and fighting, even when victory seemed impossible, he had earned respect not just for himself but for his entire species. Years later, when new species made contact with the Council, they were given a handbook. Understanding the Galactic Community, it was called. It contained information about major species, important laws, and cultural customs. But one section was required reading for all newcomers. The section was titled Understanding Humanity. It explained human history, their evolution as persistent predators, their tendency to view impossible challenges as merely difficult, their refusal to accept defeat. The opening line of that section became famous across the galaxy. If you challenge humanity, be prepared for the consequences. You are not facing warriors or conquerors. You are facing survivors who climbed from the bottom of their world's food chain to its apex through relentless adaptation. They do not have the strength of Vorithians or the technology of Zephrani or the numbers of Thorians. But they have something more dangerous. They never stop. Congratulations, you just challenged the deadliest force in existence. Jake sat in his office on the council station reading that passage for the 100th time. It made him smile. The galaxy had learned, not through words or treaties but through demonstration. Humanity had proven what they were capable of. Now they had to prove they could use that capability wisely. New challenges would come. That was certain. The galaxy was a dangerous place full of species with their own agendas and ambitions. But Jake was not worried. Humanity had faced extinction more times than he could count. Ice ages, plagues, wars, hostile aliens, they survived it all. Because that was what humans did. They adapted. They persevered. They found a way forward even when there seemed to be no path. It was in their nature, built into their genes by millions of years of evolution on a world that tried constantly to kill them. Amy visited him that evening. She had just returned from a training mission with Vorithian pilots. They are good, she said. Strong, fast, but they fight like their enemies will always be weaker than them. I tried to teach them our tactics. They struggle with the concept of winning through persistence. That is because they evolved differently, Jake said. They do not have our history, our experience of being prey that became predators. Give them time. They will learn. Amy looked out the window at the stars. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you had refused Drelkoth's challenge? If you had just accepted the protectorate status? Jake considered the question. Sometimes, but I think refusing would have been worse than losing the fight. It would have told the galaxy that humans talk big but back down when challenged. Better to stand and fight even if you lose. But you did not lose, Amy pointed out. No, we did not lose any of the fights. Jake smiled. Turns out being stubborn and refusing to quit is a pretty good strategy. Amy laughed. That should be humanity's motto. Too stubborn to lose. After she left, Jake returned to his work. There were reports to read, diplomatic issues to resolve, the normal business of being humanity's representative to an entire galaxy. It was exhausting. It was frustrating. Sometimes he missed the simplicity of military command where problems could be solved with clear orders and decisive action. But this was the job. This was what humanity needed now. Not warriors, but diplomats. Not fighters, but builders. They had proven they could win wars. Now they had to prove they could win peace.